Imagine a moment in history that redefined power, a testament to inner strength when the world expected weakness. In 1503, before the formidable papal court, Duke Valentino faced a torrent of accusations from Cardinal Giuliano: treachery, murder, words designed to crush, to exile, to condemn. Every eye, every ear, every mind in that marbled chamber anticipated the desperate scramble, the frantic defense, the human act of self-justification when life hung by a thread. But Duke Valentino, with a wisdom centuries ahead of its time, chose a different path. He uttered not a single word. He offered no gesture, no shift in his steadfast posture. Just an unyielding, profound silence that seemed to consume the very air, stretching the seconds into an eternity. It was this magnificent, calculated stillness that baffled Cardinal Giuliano, turning his confident accusations into a frantic, echoing desperation. Within an hour, the accuser questioned himself. Within a day, he offered apologies. Within a week, he became the Duke's fervent defender. This wasn't merely political genius. It was the unveiling of a profound psychological truth. Machiavelli called it the law of destructive defense, a timeless principle that reveals how true power lies not in reaction, but in an unwavering, strategic calm. Today, we unlock this 500-year-old secret, a principle that can entirely reshape any confrontation in your favor, transforming perceived weakness into undeniable strength. Because what Duke Valentino understood, and what so many of us struggle to grasp, is that the very instant you leap to your own defense, you've already conceded the psychological battlefield. You've surrendered control of the narrative, not to your attacker, but to their emotional agenda. Modern psychology, through the pioneering work of Dr. Robert Cialdini, now echoes Machiavelli's ancient observations. When you rush to justify your actions, your brain triggers what's known as cognitive subordination. You are, in essence, mentally placing yourself beneath the person questioning you. It's a subtle yet seismic shift, a neurological hierarchy established in mere microseconds, yet its social repercussions can linger for days, months, even years. From an evolutionary lens, in our primal past, the one compelled to explain themselves was often the one caught in wrongdoing, proving their lesser status. The true alpha, the leader, didn't explain. Their authority was inherent. So, when you instinctively jump into defensive mode, you're inadvertently activating ancient social programming, signaling subordination. But here's the truly revolutionary insight. Machiavelli grasped centuries before neuroscience. Your attacker's brain is also following a deeply ingrained script. They anticipate your submission, your argument, your frantic fight. What they are utterly unprepared for is your complete, unwavering indifference to their attack. When you refuse to defend, you shatter their psychological framework. Their mind, suddenly devoid of a predictable response, scrambles, desperate to establish a new context. And in that chaotic scramble, they often reveal far more about their own insecurities and intentions than they ever meant to. Yet, even more devastating is the internal chaos that erupts within your attacker when you maintain your silence. Their brain enters what neuroscientists term projection overdrive. Without your defense to anchor their assault, their mind, in its desperate attempt to make sense of the void, begins to fill in the blanks. And almost invariably, it fills them with fear, doubt, and self-incrimination. Think about the last time you sent a crucial message and received no immediate reply. Did your mind calmly think, they must be busy? Or did it spiral into, they're angry, they don't care, they're done with me? That's projection overdrive working against you, creating a narrative far worse than reality. Now, imagine consciously wielding that same potent psychological force. Dr. Amy Cuddy's groundbreaking research at Harvard Business School illuminates this further. showing that when individuals encounter unexpected silence in confrontational scenarios, their stress hormones can surge by an astonishing 400. Cortisol floods their system, triggering a primal fight or flight response. But here's the profound twist. You've given them no clear target for that intense internal battle. With nothing external to fight, their nervous system turns inward, consuming itself. They begin to second-guess their own words, their own motives. They question if they've misread the entire situation, wondering if they are, in fact, the one who appears foolish. Picture yourself in a heated discussion. Instead of defending, you simply meet their gaze with serene, almost curious calm. Observe how their confidence visibly crumbles. Without your defensive energy to feed their fire, their attack withers, losing all momentum. They might repeat themselves, their voice climbing in pitch, their eyes darting around the room, desperately seeking validation that never arrives. And instead of summoning the courage to gaze into that mirror and embark on a path of self-discovery, they lash out, attacking the mirror itself. As Jung profoundly wrote, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." Yet, tragically, most choose the fleeting comfort of irritation over the profound wisdom of understanding. The true danger, in the most empowering sense, emerges when an empath finally integrates what Jung called their shadow. This shadow encompasses all the repressed anger, the instinct for healthy boundaries, and the innate drive for self-protection that empaths have been taught, often from childhood, to deny or suppress. Jung observed that empaths don't merely repress their own uncomfortable emotions. They often become unconscious containers, repositories for everyone else's unexpressed shadow material. The simmering rage their parents couldn't acknowledge, the suffocating grief their friends couldn't process, the subtle manipulations their partners refused to own. They have severed themselves from their emotional truth so completely that your authentic presence feels like a searing judgment. What I term sensitivity shaming begins precisely when they realize your empathy poses a direct threat to their carefully constructed emotional numbness. They cannot, or will not, admit they have abandoned their own depths, so they cunningly convince you that depth itself is the problem. You've undoubtedly heard these piercing phrases: "You're too emotional," "You overthink everything," "You're being dramatic." Each statement is a transparent projection of their own terror of feeling, their own fear of the vastness within. Jung observed that projection is one of the most pervasive psychic phenomena, and empaths, with their innate openness, become the ideal screen for others' disowned emotions, like a blank canvas upon which they paint their own internal chaos. If you've been told you're too sensitive, and you're now ready to reclaim that as your undeniable strength, let your voice be heard in the comments below. My sensitivity is my superpower. You've always sensed this truth, even if you couldn't articulate it. Those who claim to love you often harbor a secret, corrosive resentment toward your profound emotional gifts. What I call empathic envy operates on a far more destructive level than simple jealousy. Jealousy, in its essence, desires to possess what another has. Envy, however, yearns to destroy it. Jung, in his immense wisdom, identified 5 unmistakable warning signs that reveal the presence of dangerous shadow projection. It's like waking from a long, confusing dream and suddenly seeing the world for what it truly is. Stage 2. The integration. The empath doesn't reject their profound sensitivity. They learn to master it, to wield it as an incredibly potent tool. They begin to weaponize their hyperperceptive abilities, not for harm, but for discerning truth. They use their innate radar not to absorb and please, but to see through manipulation, deception, and hidden agendas long before they can take root. Sign 3. Emotional intensity, disproportionate to evidence. They exhibit profoundly strong emotional reactions to perceived slights or behaviors that others find minor, non-existent, or easily explained. Their explosive emotional intensity serves as a revealing window into the projected content, rather than reflecting your actual behavior. He began sarcastically calling her the feelings police and suggesting she was exhausting to be around. You've experienced this systematic dimming, haven't you? The person who once celebrated your depth now treats it as an unbearable burden. They make cutting jokes about your sensitivity in front of others. They roll their eyes when you share profound insights. They suggest you're reading too much into things, effectively telling you to silence your inner wisdom. Sign 5. Recruitment behavior. They subtly, or overtly, attempt to enlist others to see you through their distorted lens. This often manifests through seemingly concerned conversations about your character or behavior, cloaked in an air of worry or just trying to help. When they label you too much, they are unwittingly admitting they are too little. When they accuse you of overthinking, they are revealing they have ceased thinking altogether about anything that truly matters. Jung observed that envy is the ultimate antagonist of the fortunate, and your emotional authenticity, your vibrant capacity to feel, represents the ultimate fortune to those who have tragically bartered their souls for fleeting social acceptance or hollow material success. But here's a critical insight you may not have fully realized. Their envy serves a dark psychological function. By attacking your luminous gifts, they temporarily alleviate the excruciating pain of their own emotional poverty. Each time they diminish you, they experience a fleeting moment of relief, a temporary balm for their own numbness. This is precisely why the attacks never cease. They need to keep diminishing you to avoid the terrifying prospect of confronting themselves. Jung understood that this elevated level of perception is, in essence, a form of active imagination, the profound ability to perceive psychological realities operating far beneath the superficial surface of appearances. The awakened empath becomes what I describe as a truth detector, a living, breathing beacon that no amount of charm, elaborate illusion, or manipulative tactic can ever fool. Let me illustrate this profound transformation through 3 compelling real-world scenarios, where your deep insights are met with shallow, dismissive responses, and your sacred vulnerability is treated as mere entertainment rather than a precious, shared truth. Elena's third relationship, with Robert, unveiled the most sophisticated and perhaps the cruelest form of false love. She stopped explaining herself, ceased defending her meticulously produced work, and, most importantly, stopped desperately trying to prove her competence to someone whose opinion was, in truth, utterly irrelevant. The shift was instantaneous. Without Sarah's emotional labor to feed upon, without her unconscious participation, her colleague's carefully constructed mask began to slip, revealing the true face beneath. Others in the office, no longer obscured by the emotional tension Sarah had absorbed, finally began to notice his manipulative behavior. Stage 6. Systematic exclusion. The group, now united by the shared projection, organizes around this collective delusion, systematically excluding, isolating, or actively attacking you for qualities that exist primarily within the projector's unconscious. You've experienced this debilitating emotional one-sidedness, the person who rushes to you with every crisis, but mysteriously vanishes when you are in need of support, who expects you to understand every nuance of their complexity, yet shows no genuine interest in understanding yours, who takes your invaluable emotional labor for granted, offering nothing substantial or reciprocal in return. He learned to feel genuine compassion for his mother's deeply rooted pain, but crucially, without taking responsibility for it. He set firm boundaries, without elaborate explanations or justifications. He steadfastly refused to be drawn into endless arguments about his self-worth or life choices. His mother's manipulations, starved of their usual fuel, became desperate, then eventually ceased altogether. Without Michael's unconscious participation, she was forced to either seek healthier ways to meet her emotional needs or to find new, unsuspecting victims. They make you feel as though your empathy is the most beautiful, extraordinary thing they have ever encountered. But this isn't genuine appreciation. It's acquisition. They are not celebrating your gift. They are subtly, insidiously claiming it. And once they believe they have unfettered access to your empathy, they commence the process of controlling and diminishing it, because deep down, they instinctively know they don't deserve what they are utterly incapable of reciprocating. Jung profoundly observed, "Where love rules, there is no will to power, and where power predominates, love is lacking." False lovers are driven by this will to power, the desperate need to control your empathy, to bend it to serve their emotional needs, while simultaneously preventing it from exposing their own emotional poverty. They often possess extraordinary charisma, combined with an alarming rigidity of thinking. Their conviction creates a magnetic attraction, drawing others into their orbit, while their inflated state simultaneously eliminates psychological flexibility, rendering them incapable of true empathy or growth. Jung warned that inflated individuals eventually collapse under the immense psychic tension of identifying their small human ego with vast transpersonal contents. But before this inevitable collapse, they often inflict devastating damage upon others through their absolute conviction in their own righteousness. Instead of facing their emotional numbness, they cunningly project that numbness onto you and label it rationality. Instead of owning their profound fear of emotional depth, they project that fear onto you and call your depth instability. You know this agonizing feeling, the gradual erosion of confidence in your own perceptions, the creeping, insidious doubt about whether you truly are too sensitive, the way their constant, subtle criticism makes you question the very gift that has intuitively guided you throughout your entire life. Jung called this the integration of opposites. The empath learns to master the delicate balance of holding both deep compassion and sharp discernment, both radical openness and firm boundaries, both unconditional love and fierce self-protection. They evolve into what I term the integrated warrior healer, an individual capable of loving fiercely and deeply, while simultaneously protecting their own sacred self completely. This profound integration creates what Jung famously termed the transcendent function, a psychological state where seemingly contradictory forces unite to forge something far greater, something entirely new, something more powerful than the sum of their individual parts. The empath's former perceived weakness becomes their undeniable strength, but their former strength doesn't transform into weakness. Instead, both qualities mature into a conscious, holistic wisdom. What I call reality revision is their systematic, deliberate attempt to rewrite your empathic experiences. When you instinctively sense their anger, they adamantly insist they are not angry. When you acutely feel their emotional withdrawal, they claim nothing has changed. When you detect their simmering resentment, they accuse you of being paranoid. You have undoubtedly lived this maddening, disorienting experience. Your empathy screams one truth, yet they stubbornly insist on another, entirely contradictory reality. Perhaps the most alarming sign Jung identified is archetypal possession. This occurs when someone loses their individual identity and becomes an unconscious channel for transpersonal energies, powerful, ancient forces that far exceed their personal capacity to integrate. You can recognize this unsettling state when someone's personal personality seems to vanish, replaced by something ancient, impersonal, and profoundly authoritative. Their eyes might seem to change, their voice might shift, and they speak with an authority that clearly does not belong to their personal experience. They desperately want you to rely solely on their distorted version of reality instead of trusting your own profound emotional intelligence. Jung beautifully wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But false lovers cunningly convince you that who you truly are is a problem to be solved, rather than a gift to be celebrated. You've likely noticed how their projection escalates over time. First, they question your specific insights. Then, They question your empathic ability in general. But here's what makes archetypal possession so profoundly dangerous. Archetypes contain extreme polarities. The very same archetypal energy that produces saints can also produce fanatics. The person possessed by the savior archetype, for instance, will inevitably manifest its shadow aspects, often becoming the very thing they claim to oppose or destroy. T-hive. Recognize the pattern. Jung emphatically stressed the vital importance of bringing unconscious patterns into conscious awareness. The empath must bravely confront and acknowledge how they have been unconsciously participating in their own depletion. This is not about self-blame. It is the most profound act of self-empowerment. Jung famously wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Begin to meticulously document your interactions. When do you feel inexplicably drained? Who consistently takes far more than they ever give? The final dangerous sign, what Jung called the compulsion to repeat, reveals itself as unconscious patterns where someone obsessively recreates the same painful situations, all while genuinely believing themselves to be innocent victims of cruel fate. This might seem less immediately dangerous than the other signs, but people trapped in repetition compulsions unconsciously recruit others to play roles in their unresolved psychological dramas. You have now reached a crucial, liberating recognition. The problem was never, ever your empathy. The problem was accepting false lovers who were fundamentally incapable of honoring your magnificent gift. What I call the empathic awakening begins when you courageously cease trying to make yourself smaller, to dim your brilliant light, to fit into relationships that were never meant for your expansive soul. Jung believed that individuation, the sacred process of becoming who you truly are, demands withdrawing projections and reclaiming the disowned parts of yourself. Without realizing it, you can find yourself playing a preordained role in a story that began long before you met this person, often the role of betrayer, abandoner, or persecutor. Jung termed this negative synchronicity, the unconscious ability to orchestrate encounters that perpetuate unresolved traumatic patterns. The person trapped in repetition compulsions unconsciously emits subtle signals that attract precisely those who can help them recreate their original traumatic scenarios, creating a cycle of pain and misunderstanding for all involved. Healthy partners genuinely desire to understand your gift, to learn from your unique perspective, while false lovers ruthlessly seek to exploit it for their own gain. Jung's transformative work with Elena vividly revealed this profound process of healing and reclamation. After enduring 3 relationships with false lovers, Elena, with newfound clarity, began to recognize the insidious pattern. I realized I was unconsciously attracted to emotionally unavailable people because they felt familiar, she confided in Jung. My childhood had subtly taught me that love meant working harder, constantly striving to earn approval. This, my dear empath, is your breakthrough moment. Understanding that your empathic wound, a place of profound sensitivity, inadvertently created an attraction to individuals who would, tragically, recreate that very wound. You were unconsciously drawn to false lovers because they felt like home, even though that home was precisely where you first learned to survive by subtly abandoning yourself. Empathic boundaries are fundamentally different from conventional boundaries. They are not rigid walls designed to keep everyone out. Instead, they are finely tuned filters, exquisite instruments that discern who truly deserves access to your precious emotional gifts. As Jung wisely noted, boundaries are not about keeping others out, but about knowing where you end and others begin. You have learned this through painful, yet ultimately illuminating experience. Not everyone deserves unfettered access to your profound empathic abilities. Step 3. Limit information. Do not share personal details, vulnerabilities, or aspirations that can be twisted, distorted, or weaponized into evidence supporting their projections. Guard your inner world fiercely. This isn't about hardening your heart or becoming cold. It is about becoming wise-hearted, a beacon of discernment. You already possess the inner compass to identify genuine appreciation versus the hollow echoes of false love. Genuine appreciation seeks to understand your empathy, to marvel at its depth, and to learn from its unique wisdom. False love, conversely, seeks to use your empathy and, ultimately, to control it. Genuine appreciation deepens and enriches over time, like a well-tended garden. Step 5. Seek outside perspective. Talk to trusted friends, family, or a professional who knows both you and the projector. Reality check your perceptions with people outside the projection field to confirm your own sanity and perspective. What I call gift protection becomes your sacred new priority. Just as you would never entrust a precious, irreplaceable instrument to someone who would carelessly damage it, you do not share your profound empathic gifts with individuals who will abuse or diminish them. This isn't selfishness. It is profound stewardship of your most sacred essence. These communities become vibrant models for healthy human connection, founded on mutual respect, authentic reciprocity, and conscious growth, rather than unconscious needs or transactional dynamics. Jung observed that the most intense conflicts, if overcome, leave behind a sense of security and calm that is not easily disturbed. Your courageous journey through empathic abuse, when consciously integrated and understood, forges an unshakable trust in your own perceptions, a deep inner knowing that cannot be swayed. But here's the liberating truth Jung discovered, the truth that can truly save you. Conscious awareness of these patterns breaks their power. When you can recognize shadow projection, ego inflation, persona identification, archetypal possession, and the compulsion to repeat not just in others, but also within the subtle stirrings of your own psyche, you are no longer vulnerable to their unconscious, destructive influence. The most dangerous people are those who remain utterly unconscious of their own darkness, their own shadow. The sovereign empath has seamlessly integrated both their extraordinary empathic gifts and their finely honed capacity for discernment. You can feel deeply, authentically, without ever losing yourself in the process. You can love with an open heart without ever tolerating abuse. You can offer boundless compassion without ever becoming a doormat. As Jung wrote, the acceptance of oneself is the essence of the whole moral problem and the epitome of a whole outlook on life. Jung wrote, the world hangs on a thin thread, and that thread is the psyche of man. The awakened empath embodies what happens when that psyche becomes acutely conscious of its own inherent power and unequivocally refuses to participate in unconscious destruction. This is precisely why awakened empaths often face intense resistance, not just from individual narcissists, but from entire family systems, entrenched workplace cultures, and broader social groups that depend on their unconscious participation to maintain their equilibrium. Codependency, tragically, enables dysfunction, perpetuating imbalance. The sovereign empath, through this profound transformation, begins to attract entirely different relationships, partnerships with individuals who have courageously undertaken their own emotional work, who appreciate depth because they have cultivated it within themselves, who celebrate your empathy because they deeply understand and honor its immense value. Jung's timeless wisdom echoes, where love rules, there is no will to power, and where power predominates, love is lacking. The sovereign empath, with their finely tuned intuition, recognizes genuine love by its conspicuous absence of power dynamics. Real love does not attempt to control, diminish, or exploit your empathy. You now understand, with profound clarity, that your empathic experiences with false lovers were not failures, but powerful initiations, sacred trials that forged your wisdom. Each toxic relationship taught you something essential about discerning authentic love from hollow pretense. Each painful experience of envy vividly revealed the stark contrast between your emotional authenticity and others' emotional poverty. What I call empathic mastery means utilizing your sensitivity as an unparalleled guidance system for all of life's complex decisions. Your empathy speaks volumes, revealing which opportunities truly serve your growth and which merely drain your vital energy. Your empathy illuminates which people honor your profound truth and which seek only to exploit it. You have, against all odds, become the hero of your own magnificent story, no longer the unwitting victim of others' envy, but the sovereign ruler of your own empathic kingdom. You, and you alone, decide who gains access to your precious gifts. You choose relationships that celebrate, rather than merely tolerate, your exquisite sensitivity. Jung observed that your task is not to seek love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. For empaths, the primary barrier has often been accepting others' distorted definitions of love, instead of trusting your own profound empathic knowing of what authentic love truly feels like. Your heroic journey from the empathic wound to sovereign power is not just complete, it's a testament to your indomitable spirit. Jung's groundbreaking discovery revealed that your empathic experiences are not personal shortcomings, but archetypal patterns, universal themes that sensitive souls have navigated for eons. You are not the first empath to attract false lovers, and you will not be the last. But you can break the cycle definitively by refusing to accept love that comes with conditions, with a hidden price tag, with the demand that you diminish your most authentic self. Your empathy was never the problem. The problem was living in a world that has, tragically, forgotten how to feel authentically, and encountering individuals who resent you fiercely for remembering. Your sensitivity is not something to heal from, it is something to heal with. You have learned to recognize envy disguised as love, projection masked as concern, and exploitation cleverly hidden behind a veneer of affection. You have valiantly reclaimed your empathic gifts as sacred, rather than shameful. You have become the unwavering guardian of your own emotional truth, a lighthouse of authenticity. Jung believed that individuated people, those who truly become themselves, transform into guiding lights in the darkness for others still struggling to find their way. Your profound journey from wounded empath to sovereign empath serves not only your own magnificent healing, but becomes a radiant beacon for countless other sensitive souls who desperately need to see that such a profound transformation is, indeed, possible. The most essential wisdom I can offer you, as you step into your sovereign power, is this. Trust your empathic intelligence completely, without hesitation. When something feels off, investigate its depths. When someone's behavior sharply contradicts their words, believe the behavior, for it speaks a deeper truth. When your empathy tells you someone is safe or unsafe, listen without question, for your inner oracle never lies. Remember, your empathy is a gift to be treasured, revered, and fiercely protected, not a burden to be managed or diminished. The right people, those who are aligned with your authentic self, will instinctively recognize this treasure and treat it with the profound reverence it deserves. Those who do not were never meant to be in your sacred inner circle. Your journey bravely continues as a sovereign empath, who now, with crystal clarity, knows the profound difference between love that celebrates and love that diminishes. You will now attract people who honor your extraordinary gifts, precisely because you have finally learned to honor them yourself. As you move forward, carry with you Elena's final illuminating insight to Jung. I learned that my empathy wasn't my weakness disguised as strength. It was my strength that others tried to disguise as weakness. That, dear empath, is your undeniable truth, too. If this profound message resonated with your empathic journey, I invite you to explore my other video on Carl Jung, How to Never Get Angry or Bothered by Anyone, where we delve deeper into Jung's powerful techniques for maintaining emotional sovereignty in a world that often misunderstands and undervalues sensitivity. If you've recognized yourself in this empathic transformation, and are ready to live unapologetically as a sovereign empath, declare your intention in the comments. I choose authentic love over false comfort. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to connecting with you in the next dimension of understanding.